You type a search into the Windows 11 search bar. Maybe you're looking for a file on your computer. Maybe you're trying to open an application. You think it's local. You think it's private. You're wrong. Every single keystroke you enter into that search bar is being sent directly to Microsoft's Bing servers in real time. Before you even finish typing, before you hit enter, every letter, every word, every search query transmitted instantly to Microsoft's cloud. They're logging it. They're analyzing it. They're building a profile of everything you search for on your own computer. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is documented. Security researchers proved it. Privacy advocates are screaming about it. And the implications are so disturbing that even Bill Gates, who hasn't actively managed Microsoft in nearly 2 decades, got dragged into emergency damage control meetings. If you want to understand why Windows is hemorrhaging users faster than any point in its history, subscribe right now, because what you're about to learn will fundamentally change how you see your computer. This is the story of how Microsoft turned your local search into a surveillance pipeline and why they're in full panic mode now that everyone's finding out. The discovery that changed everything. It started in November 2024. A security researcher named Rafael Mendez was analyzing network traffic on his Windows 11 machine. He was using Wireshark, a packet analysis tool that shows every piece of data your computer sends and receives. He was looking for something else entirely, investigating background telemetry, when he noticed something strange. Every time he typed in the Windows search bar, his computer was making outbound connections to Microsoft servers. Not when he hit enter. Not when he selected a search result. The moment he started typing. Character by character. He documented it. He recorded the traffic. He published his findings on GitHub. The Windows 11 search bar sends every keystroke to Bing.com before performing any local search. The data packets were clear. Each character you type generates an HTTPS request to Microsoft's servers. The request includes your search query, your device ID, your Microsoft account identifier if you're signed in, and a timestamp. Microsoft receives this data in real time. They know what you're searching for before you do. They're watching you type, live, on your own computer, on hardware you paid for. Rafael published his research expecting a small response from the privacy community. What he got was an avalanche. Within 48 hours, security researchers around the world replicated his findings. They all confirmed the same thing. Windows 11 Search is a keylogger that reports directly to Microsoft. The outcry was immediate and massive. Privacy advocates called it the most invasive default behavior ever implemented in a mainstream operating system. Tech news sites ran headlines asking if Microsoft had turned Windows into spyware. Forums exploded with users demanding answers. Microsoft stayed silent for 6 days. No statement, no explanation, no acknowledgement. The pressure built. European data protection authorities started asking questions. Germany's Federal Office for Information Security issued a preliminary warning. The UK's Information Commissioner's Office announced an inquiry. Then Microsoft finally responded. Their statement was a masterpiece of corporate doublespeak. They said the search functionality in Windows 11 is designed to provide users with comprehensive results from both local and web sources. They said sending search queries to Bing enables faster, more relevant web results. They said users can disable web search if they prefer local-only results. They said this is documented in their privacy policy that nobody reads. What they didn't say, why does this need to happen keystroke by keystroke? Why not wait until the user hits enter or selects a web result? Why is web search enabled by default with no clear opt-out during setup? Why are device identifiers and account data included with every keystroke? Microsoft's statement satisfied nobody. The privacy community called it gaslighting. Security experts called it insufficient. Users called it what it actually is, surveillance. And then people started looking closer at exactly what was being transmitted and what Microsoft was doing with the data. That's when things got truly terrifying. What Microsoft is really capturing? Let's be very specific about what's happening when you type in the Windows 11 search bar. You press the Windows key, The search interface appears. You start typing. Let's say you're looking for a local file, a document called budget 2024.xlsx. You type B. Before you type the next letter, your computer has already sent an HTTPS post request to a Microsoft server. The request contains the letter B, your device hardware ID, your Windows installation ID, your IP address, and if you're signed into a Microsoft account, your account identifier. You type U. Another request, same data, now with BU. You type D. Another request, same identifiers, now BUD. You type G. Another request, BUDG. You type E. Another request, BUDGE. You type T, budget. Every single character generates a new transmission to Microsoft servers, even though this is a local file search, even though the results showing on your screen are coming from your local hard drive. Every keystroke is still being sent to Microsoft in real time. They're not waiting to see if you actually want web results. They're not checking if you click on a web result. They're capturing everything preemptively, building a complete record of every search query you start typing, even the ones you abandon halfway through because you realized you misspelled something. Now, multiply that by every time you use search, every application you launch by typing its name, every file you look for, every setting you try to find. If you use Windows Search 10 times a day, that's potentially hundreds of keystrokes transmitted to Microsoft daily. Over a year, that's tens of thousands of data points about your behavior, your files, your interests, your work, your habits. Microsoft is building a comprehensive profile of how you use your computer based on your search patterns. They know what applications you use most frequently. They know what kinds of files you work with. They know what times of day you're active. They know what you're searching for when you're troubleshooting problems, revealing what issues you're having. They know when you're searching for financial terms, suggesting when you're doing banking or investing. They know when you're searching for medical terms, revealing potential health concerns. They know when you're searching for legal terms, suggesting possible legal issues. All of this from a search bar you thought was just looking through your local computer. And here's where it gets worse. The data isn't just collected, it's retained, analyzed, and used. Microsoft's privacy policy states they use search data to improve services, personalize experiences, and deliver relevant advertisements. That means your local computer searches are being used to build advertising profiles. You search for a file named diabetesresearch.docx on your own computer. Microsoft logs that search. Next time you use Edge browser or visit a Microsoft property, you might see ads for diabetes medication or glucose monitors. You searched locally. They advertised globally. You searched privately. They monetized it publicly. The impossible opt-out that isn't really opt-out. After Microsoft's statement, tech blogs started publishing guides on how to disable the web search functionality. Turns out it's deliberately difficult. There's no toggle in Windows settings that clearly says, disable sending my searches to Microsoft. No checkbox that says, keep my searches local only. Microsoft buried the controls and made them confusing. Here's the official method to disable web results in Windows 11 search. You have to edit the Windows registry. The registry editor is an advanced system tool that most users have never opened. One wrong edit can break Windows. Microsoft knows this. They know putting the control in the registry means 95% of users will never touch it. For those who do attempt it, here's the process. Press Windows plus R to open Run Dialog. Type regedit, hit Enter, navigate to HKEI Current User and Software H Policies E Microsoft YUL Windows. Create a new key called Explorer if it doesn't exist. Create a new DWORD value called Disable Search Box Suggestions. Set it to 1, restart your computer. 8 steps. Using an advanced tool most people have never heard of. Creating registry keys manually. And even after doing this, you're not actually stopping Microsoft from receiving your keystrokes. You're just stopping web results from displaying in the search interface. The data is still being transmitted. Security researchers confirmed this. Even with Disable Search Box Suggestions enabled, Network traffic analysis shows search keystrokes still generate outbound connections to Microsoft servers. The setting doesn't stop data collection. It only stops you from seeing web results. Microsoft is still receiving every keystroke. You just can't see that they are anymore. That's not privacy protection. That's privacy theater. It's a fake control that makes users think they've protected themselves while Microsoft continues surveillance in the background. When this was discovered, the privacy community exploded. Electronic Frontier Foundation published a scathing article calling it deceptive design. European consumer protection agencies started formal complaints. German politicians called for investigations into whether Microsoft was violating GDPR by making data collection the default without clear, informed consent. Sharon Hughes is a freelance journalist in Toronto. She writes investigative pieces about corporate malfeasance and government corruption. She deals with confidential sources, sensitive documents, and information that could put people at risk if exposed. She upgraded to Windows 11 in August 2024. She had no idea her local searches were being transmitted to Microsoft until she read Rafael Mendez's research. She immediately understood the implications. She'd been searching for files containing source names, searching for folders with confidential information, searching for documents related to stories she hadn't published yet. Every search query went to Microsoft. Her searches revealed her story subjects, her investigation targets, her source relationships, her research focus. Microsoft logged everything. She's a journalist who covers surveillance and privacy issues, and she'd been under surveillance by the company that made her operating system without ever knowing it. She wiped her computer and installed Linux Mint. She published an article titled, "Microsoft Turned My Computer into an Informant." It went viral, 2.3 million views in 3 days. Her conclusion: Windows 11 is incompatible with journalism, incompatible with confidential work, incompatible with privacy, and incompatible with the assumption that your computer is your private workspace. She's not the only one who reached that conclusion. Lawyers started realizing attorney-client privilege could be compromised. Doctors started worrying about HIPAA violations. Accountants started questioning whether client confidentiality was being maintained. Therapists started understanding that patient privacy might be at risk. Anyone whose work involves confidential information suddenly realized Windows 11 might be a liability they couldn't accept. And Microsoft's response to this professional exodus? Nothing. Bill Gates gets pulled back in. Bill Gates officially stepped down from Microsoft's board in March 2020. He hasn't had operational control of the company in nearly 2 decades. But when the Windows 11 search scandal broke, when European regulators started investigations, when enterprise customers started threatening to migrate away from Windows, Microsoft's current leadership did something unprecedented. They asked Bill Gates to get involved. According to sources inside Microsoft, CEO Satya Nadella personally reached out to Gates in December 2024. The message: we have a trust crisis with Windows that's threatening the entire ecosystem. We need your help. Gates reportedly resisted initially. He's been carefully managing his public image, focusing on philanthropy, staying away from Microsoft controversies. But Nadella made the case that this wasn't just a PR problem. This was existential. Windows 11 adoption was stalling. Enterprise customers were evaluating alternatives. Government contracts were being reconsidered. The EU was preparing potentially massive fines for GDPR violations. If Windows lost dominance, Microsoft's entire business model would be threatened. Cloud services depend on Windows integration. Office 365 depends on Windows users. The whole ecosystem is built on Windows ubiquity. If that crumbles, everything else becomes vulnerable. Gates agreed to participate in internal strategy meetings. According to the leaks, his advice was straightforward. Acknowledge the problem clearly, give users real control with simple toggles, make privacy the default instead of surveillance, and rebuild trust through actions instead of PR statements. Microsoft's leadership listened politely. Then they did none of it. Instead, they launched a marketing campaign. In January 2025, Microsoft started running ads emphasizing Windows 11's security features, talking about how they protect user data, how they're committed to privacy, how they give users control. What the ads don't show, the search bar sending every keystroke to Bing servers. The registry edits required to disable web search. The fact that disabling web search doesn't actually stop data transmission. The device identifiers being sent with every search. The advertising profiles being built from local searches. It's a propaganda campaign designed to make people feel safe while the surveillance continues unchanged. Bill Gates, according to insiders, was furious when he saw the marketing approach. He reportedly told leadership they were making the problem worse, that users aren't stupid, that you can't advertise your way out of a trust crisis caused by actual surveillance. His advice was ignored. Microsoft's leadership believes they can manage perception without changing behavior. They're wrong, and the backlash is accelerating faster than they can control it. The enterprise rebellion that terrifies Microsoft. Consumer users leaving Windows is a problem. Enterprise customers leaving Windows is a catastrophe, and that's exactly what's starting to happen. Large organizations have IT departments that analyze network traffic. When those professionals discovered Windows 11 search was transmitting keystrokes to external servers, alarms went off. Harrington Financial is a regional bank in Pennsylvania with 340 employees. They upgraded 80 workstations to Windows 11 in September 2024. In November, their IT security team was conducting routine traffic analysis and noticed unusual outbound connections to Microsoft domains. They investigated and discovered the search keystroke transmission. Their compliance officer immediately flagged it as a potential regulatory issue. Banking regulations require strict control over what data leaves the network. If employees are searching for files containing customer names or account numbers, and those searches are being transmitted to external servers, that's a data leak. Harrington Financial contacted Microsoft for clarification. Microsoft's response was their standard privacy policy and a generic statement about search functionality. No specific answers, no compliance guarantees. The bank's legal team reviewed the response and concluded it was insufficient. They couldn't accept the risk. Harrington Financial made the decision to migrate away from Windows. They evaluated alternatives and chose to move their entire operation to Linux-based systems. The migration started in January 2025. By June, they'll be completely Windows-free. Microsoft lost a banking customer because they couldn't provide basic transparency about their data collection. A law firm in London with 95 attorneys discovered the same issue. They handle cases involving national security, corporate espionage, and high-profile divorces. Confidentiality isn't just important, it's legally required. The conclusion, it's an unacceptable risk. They're migrating to Mac. A healthcare system in Ohio with 200 employees protects medical records under HIPAA. Search queries revealing patient names being transmitted to external servers could be a HIPAA violation. They're switching to locked-down Linux systems. A defense contractor in Virginia working on classified projects discovered the search transmission during a security audit. The DoD is now reviewing whether Windows 11 meets security requirements for use in defense applications. The pattern is clear. Organizations that actually analyze their network security are discovering the search transmission and deciding Windows 11 is too risky. These are large enterprises with thousands of seats, multi-year contracts, and deep integration with Windows ecosystems. They're willing to absorb massive migration costs because the privacy violation is too severe to accept. Microsoft's enterprise sales team is in crisis mode. They're losing deals, they're losing renewals, and they can't stop it because the surveillance is baked into Windows 11 at the architectural level. The psychological manipulation in the design. Let's talk about how Microsoft designed this to be as invasive as possible while looking innocent. The Windows 11 search bar sits on the taskbar. It looks like a local tool. It has a magnifying glass icon. It says "Search" when you hover over it. Nothing about it suggests your keystrokes are leaving your computer. That's intentional. Microsoft's UX designers know that if users saw a warning saying, Your searches will be sent to Microsoft servers. Many would choose not to use it, so they designed it to look local. They designed it to feel safe. They designed it to blend in with the operating system's other tools. It's deceptive by design. When you click the search bar, a window opens showing recent searches and suggested apps. All of this looks local. There's nothing in the interface suggesting external communication. Then you start typing. Results appear instantly from your computer. Everything looks like it's being processed on your device. And it is. Windows is searching your local system, but simultaneously, in the background, invisible to you, it's also sending every character to Microsoft servers. There's no indicator, no loading animation that says contacting Microsoft. The external transmission is completely hidden. This is dark pattern design. Dark patterns are UI choices that manipulate users into doing things they wouldn't do if they understood what was happening. Microsoft is using dark patterns to hide surveillance behind a local search interface. The Bing desperation that explains everything. To understand why Microsoft is doing this, you need to understand their Bing problem. Google has 92% of the global search market. Bing has less than 3%. That's after 15 years of Microsoft trying to compete. After billions in investment, Bing is a failure. Microsoft's leadership is desperate to increase Bing usage. They've tried incentives. They've tried defaults. Nothing worked. Users who want Google just go to Google. So Microsoft changed strategies. If users won't choose Bing, make them use Bing without realizing it. The Windows 11 search bar implementation is exactly that. When you type in the search bar, even though you're looking for local files, Microsoft sends your keystrokes to Bing servers. From Microsoft's perspective, that's a Bing search. It counts toward Bing usage statistics. You think you're searching your computer. Microsoft counts it as a Bing search. This is how they inflate their numbers. Internal documents leaked to tech journalists show Microsoft executives celebrating increased Bing engagement after Windows 11 launched. They attributed it to better integration. They didn't say they achieved it by secretly routing local searches through Bing servers. They just reported higher numbers and took credit for growth. Investors were told Bing is gaining ground. Advertisers were told Bing reach is expanding, all based on searches that users thought were local. This is fraud. Not legally, because Microsoft's terms of service technically disclose data collection in vague language buried in pages of legal text. But ethically, morally, it's fraudulent. They're misrepresenting what users are doing. They're inflating their metrics. They're lying to investors and advertisers about the nature of their search traffic. And users are the victims. Your local searches are being used to prop up a failing product you never chose to use. The legal firestorm building in Europe. While Microsoft deals with user backlash in the US, Europe is preparing something much worse: massive regulatory action. The European Union's General Data Protection Regulation has strict requirements for data collection. Companies must obtain explicit consent before collecting personal data. They must clearly explain what data is being collected and why. They must provide easy ways to opt out. Microsoft's Windows 11 search implementation violates multiple GDPR principles. There's no explicit consent during setup. The privacy policy disclosure is buried and vague. Opting out requires registry edits. The data collection is excessive, capturing every keystroke instead of completed searches. European data protection authorities noticed immediately. Germany's Federal Office for Information Security published a warning in December 2024, advising organizations to audit Windows 11 before deployment. France's CNIL opened an investigation into Microsoft's data practices in Windows 11. Ireland's Data Protection Commission is conducting a formal inquiry. They've sent Microsoft detailed questions about data collection, retention, usage, and legal basis. Microsoft's responses have been inadequate. The UK's Information Commissioner's Office announced it's considering enforcement action. The European Data Protection Board added Windows 11 to its priority investigations list for 2025. The penalties for GDPR violations are severe, up to 4% of global annual revenue. For Microsoft, that's potentially $8 billion. But the financial penalty isn't the worst part. GDPR enforcement can include orders to stop processing data, to delete collected data, to fundamentally change how products work. If European regulators determine Windows 11 search violates GDPR, they could order Microsoft to disable the feature entirely for European users. They could require explicit opt-in consent with clear explanations. They could demand that Microsoft delete all search data collected without proper consent. That would be millions of users, billions of search queries, years of data. Microsoft is fighting this with armies of lawyers. They're arguing the privacy policy provides adequate notice. They're claiming legitimate interest as a legal basis for processing. They're saying users can disable the feature if they want. European regulators aren't buying it. The Hamburg Commissioner for Data Protection issued a preliminary opinion in January 2025, stating that Microsoft's arguments fail to meet GDPR standards. The opinion says, burying disclosure in a lengthy privacy policy doesn't constitute informed consent. It says requiring registry edits to disable a feature isn't an accessible opt-out. It says collecting keystroke-level data exceeds what's necessary for providing search functionality. If that opinion becomes the basis for formal enforcement actions, Microsoft is in serious trouble. And this isn't just a European problem. Other jurisdictions are watching. California's Consumer Privacy Act has similar principles. Brazil's LGPD has comparable requirements. If Europe forces Microsoft to change Windows 11 search, other regions will likely follow. Microsoft could face a global regulatory crisis that forces them to fundamentally redesign how Windows works. Bill Gates warned Microsoft's leadership this was coming. He told them European regulators don't bluff. He told them GDPR enforcement is only getting stricter. He told them the privacy-invasive approach would backfire. They didn't listen. Now they're scrambling to contain damage that could have been prevented. The regulatory pressure will only intensify. The user exodus will only accelerate. The trust deficit will only deepen. Microsoft built Windows 11 search on a foundation of surveillance, and that foundation is now crumbling.